Hey guys, SGT here, and we haven't spoken with Bob Chapman in a while, so it's awfully nice to get him back on the line. Bob, welcome back.
Well, thank you. It's very nice to be here.
Well, I wanted to read something to you from your good friend, Stephen Lenman. We've interviewed Stephen before, and we need to get him back on. Stephen's writing about waging covert war on Iran, and I wanted to talk to you about World War III, because this thing is about to get real. Stephen writes, quote, Washington and Israel plan regime change in Iran and Syria. Israel wants regional supremacy. Washington wants global hegemony and control of the world's strategic resources. America tolerates no independent states. Making them client ones is prioritized. You know, what Stephen's saying here is more endless unconstitutional war is the new American way, and there's only one guy standing in the way of this new world order, and that's Ron Paul. What's your take on how quickly we are hurtling towards World War III, Bob?
Well, I think it's going to take a little bit longer than what people think. They want to make it as painless as possible, and that's why they're doing sanctions, which is an act of war, on the sale of oil as well as the usage of the international money system, we'll call it. The Iranians have an out. They have Russia and China, as well as other smaller countries such as Brazil and Colombia, Cuba, and so I think what the strategy here is to push them as far as they can, as long as they can, and if they don't break, if they can't break them, then they'll have to resort to war. One of the things that I look at and I find very, very important, I was trained in counterintelligence, and I used to do this all the time, and that is back into what a nation is doing internally. And what we did is spy on the commercial sectors of the Soviet Union. And we'd find out exactly what they were doing. And I look at the United States and others in the same way today. Are they ready for war? And the answer is no. The logistics are not all put in place. And I think they realize that if they go forward, they're going to have to fight Russia. And being in places, are trying to go into places like south of Bentley and places like that, they're just going to make the situation worse. So they're not quite ready yet. I would say 6 months to a year, more like a year, because it'll be after the election. And then I think if they're going to move, I think time frame will be right for them, and maybe those sanctions didn't work at all, and they would be forced to go to war. On the other hand, if the sanctions work and the Iranians say, okay, well, we're not going to do that anymore, try to get a nuclear reactor, and why don't we do this? You guys bring the reactor, put it in place, and you can watch over it. We just want the power. And so it could work out that way. So we really don't know yet, but those are the possibilities, and I think that's the situation as far as moving forward with war. I think they're playing a game out there now with the ships, and another one, and Russia sent one the other day, and so they'll send another one, the Russians. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's the way it'll pile up. But it could be imminent, but I don't think so.
You know, your line is breaking up about probably every 35 seconds or 40 seconds. There's a little...
I know, and it's the United States government. And it took me down about 6 times yesterday. I had 8 programs. They knocked me out of every one of them.
All right. Well, if we lose you, why don't you give me a jingle back? Now,
I always do. When I was on with the Marine Disquisition, I had to come back 6 times.
Yeah, we barely just heard what you said, but I understand you're saying that you disconnected a couple of times there. You know, Bob, what is your take on the reality here? I mean, the Iranians are not going to stand down. We are not going to be able to mow down the Iranians like the military did with Iraq. It's okay. This is not going to be an easy thing, and nobody wants to see more American blood spilled. Plus, we're not in the right, Bob. Morally, we're not in the right. Anybody paying attention knows that we're the bad guys in this situation. We're the aggressors, and that's what's damn pathetic about it, is that the American people, especially the brainwashed right and the left, which now stands down because they believe Obama's their guy and anything he does is right. So if he's pro-war, then the wars must be good. But the bottom line is we are not in the right. To attack Iran for the benefit of any other country or ourselves is just not right. It's not constitutionally allowed for. And Ron Paul would keep us from it, wouldn't he? He would keep us from these wars of aggression.
He already told us that.
Yeah.
He was there in the Vietnam era. I'm the same age as he. He's 2 months older than me. But he spent more time in medical school and those other kind of things that I didn't do. But he knows what it's like to see a body come in shattered with no legs and no arms. And it's heartbreaking.
It's horrific.
And it's unnecessary. And, you're the only one of all the programs that I've been on in the last 2 or 3 weeks that said anything about the morality of the war or any war. We're wrong. And we've been wrong over and over again. That's what got me set on this road of life. When I was in counterintelligence in 1954, Pearl Harbor was a setup. They had all the codes broken.
Yeah, well, and we this country...
And I said to myself, the mafia are good guys compared to these guys. And I know, because I grew up with the mafia.
Yeah, in this country with the CIA, they overthrew Mossadegh in, 1954, right? And so now we're back again, and it's intolerable because to hear people like Lindsey Graham, for instance, or Gingrich, or some of these other neocons tell the story, Ron Paul's international policies or his foreign policies are intolerable and fringe. Well, why is that? That's because we are now a nation of war, and all we know is wars of aggression. And if you're not on board with the wars of aggression, you're considered fringe. Now, how beyond the pale is that? How crazy and insane is it that the average Republican can't see that? How can they not recognize this, Bob? I mean, this truly does represent the madness of a lost society that people cannot understand. They can't get it through their thick skulls that these wars of aggression are bankrupting us and they're morally outrageous. I want to just point out to everybody that this IAEA report on civilian nuclear programs in Iran, this feels like trumped-up evidence again that the American people are being asked to rally around this propaganda that Iran is trying to get, enrich uranium for a nuclear weapon when the evidence that's been provided in this case is apparently coming from a laptop, a single source, and again, this feels like more of the same war drum beating propaganda that got us into Iraq and got a lot of American soldiers killed. What is your take on the reality of this? Is this just more New World Order war propaganda?
Well, yes, it is, but it's to get the pot stirred and let people continually know that this Iranian threat is real and they're terrorists and they're going to blow up the world and all of this crap. And, of course, the Israelis are in it up to their eyeballs. And because they want to run the Middle East in congruity with the United States government. That's going to be their job. They will enslave the Islamic and Arabic populations. And they seem to think that's a great idea. But, sure, there's going to be ongoing propaganda every single day. But I think reaching back into what you said just at the beginning of the program is that Ron Paul is the only answer, and you're absolutely correct. If we don't get him in office, it is going to be dreadful.
Well, it absolutely is, and I wanted to read this to you, too, and anybody can Google this. Go to SGT Report and just Google this story. Rick Santorum talks excitedly about the assassination of American citizen Awlaki. And, this man wants to be your president. And I write, unfortunately, he thinks this government's assassination of American citizens is perfectly acceptable. In this clip, Bob, he says, and I quote, and if people say, well, you can't go out and assassinate people, well, tell that to Awlaki, okay? We've done it. We've done it for an American citizen. And he says it with gusto. He says it as though now it's perfectly acceptable. And, the constitutional counter-argument from Dr. Ron Paul is, and I quote, What have we allowed ourselves to become? Are we no longer a nation of laws? Have we become instead a nation of men who make secret arrests? Are secret prisons now simply a tool of the federal government law enforcement? Is secret rendition of individuals now permitted out of misplaced fear? Have we decided that the writ of habeas corpus is not worth defending? Is torture now an acceptable tool for making us safe? Unfortunately, the single answer to all of these questions from the leaders of our country to many of our citizens appears to be yes. And Ron Paul says, and now we are told that assassination of foreigners as well as American citizens is legitimate and necessary to provide security for our people. It is my firm opinion that nothing could be further from the truth. There's one man standing for the Constitution, Bob. There's one man standing for our rights and for the people, and that's Dr. Ron Paul. If we don't get Ron Paul in, it is over for this republic.
I couldn't have said it better.
Hey guys, thanks for watching part 1, and don't miss part 2.